The Detroit Lions coaching staff was ranked the second best in the entire NFL.
The second best.
The second best in the entire NFL.
49ers?
Chiefs.
Okay.
Let me find it. I have it in the prep from yesterday. I had to be sure. I just knew that we were second. I'll get it for you.
I did see that one of the quotes was Dan Campbell can do no wrong at this point.
I did see that.
And I will completely agree with that. Dan Campbell has this team bought in from absolutely nothing, from the bottom, from being the worst team in the NFL to now being the Super Bowl favorite in my mind, to being a team that is expected to go to the NFC Championship game, a team that you expect to win the NFC North, a team that you expect to be one of the 4 best teams in the NFL consistently. And that is definitely, obviously Brad Holmes played a big part in that, creating the roster, drafting the players. But Dan Campbell has these guys bought in, man. Dan Campbell has these guys fighting tooth and nail every single week. I feel like he's Michael Jordan sometimes, like making stuff up to make them pissed off because we know it works for them.
He's like Bugs Bunny in Space Jam. He's putting the water in the bottle. He's like, it's special stuff.
Yeah, he's giving them the special juice. But no Diddy. Dan Campbell is the man, and his coaching staff with guys like Aaron Glenn, who is a consummate professional, voted by the players as the defensive coordinator they would want to play under most. A guy in Ben Johnson who is just an analytical offensive genius. You look at the assistant or the technical coaches, guys like Kelvin Shepard, guys like not Deuce Staley, guys like Hank Fraley, Terrell Williams. From top to bottom, you have guys on this roster that I could see being head coaches very soon. The Dan Campbell tree in the NFL could be blooming very soon. When you look at guys like Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn, who are going to more than likely get head coaching positions pretty soon. Guys like Kelvin Shepard, Hank Fraley, Terrell Williams, all of which are on the come-up. Antoine Randall, an amazing coach in his own right. All of these guys are on the come-up, and I could see them branching off to different positions and moving further. And they're definitely Smash Mouth fans.
Definitely Smash Mouth fans.
Dan Campbell would probably get down for some Smash Mouth.
Dan brings the smash. Ben Johnson brings the mouth.
That's true.
To my ranking coaching staffs, I think number 2 fits. I really do. Like you said, like the coaching tree is about to bloom here soon. But Ben Johnson's been coordinated for 2 consecutive years now. But because Dan Campbell's so great at being like the leader part of everything, the executive part of everything, he hasn't left because he wants to see this thing. I got to see it through, my boy. Yeah. That's exactly what Ben Johnson said before leaving to become the head coach of the Commanders or whoever else it is. He's staying here put, and half that's to do with Dan Campbell's leadership. The other part of it, too, is he started building what this team is, and that is a Super Bowl contender. And obviously go to AG, and there's conversations to be had. There's a little bit more debate there. However, he's still renowned and respected around the league. I remember his very first year. We had that game against Lamar Jackson, the Ravens, and we got that 64 record-breaking field goal kicked against us.
Yes.
But after that, defensive coordinators were calling AG you were like the first one to kind of slow down Lamar there. Like, what did you do? Mm-hmm. And he doesn't even use a QB spy. And he's finally, as you said before, so prophetically, he's finally got the vegetables to make that salad.
Yes, he does.
He's no longer cooking with rotten vegetables.
No, he's not.
Or ripe ones. Too many young guys. I mean, there's some young guys brought in here, but now the young guys brought for specific reasons that have already done specific things. You heard AG say it the other day, I don't need to see more out of Terrion Arnold. We knew what we got when we drafted him.
We know he's a smash-mouth football player.
We know he's a smash-mouth football player.
That's why they drafted him.
And for me, I think it only makes sense that a team like the Chiefs would be the only coaching staff ahead of the Detroit Lions. You'd have Andy Reid, who's done it in multiple places now, but most certainly obviously won the Super Bowl 3 times now. You have who's the guy who used to coach the Bears as their offensive coordinator?
Matt Nagy.
Matt Nagy.
Yeah.
Listen, say what you want about Matt Nagy. He won a playoff game with freaking
Mitch Trubisky.
That's
an impressive feat.
Yeah, I get stuff when sour, and that's why you can't just be like an X and O guy in this league. You have to have the smash of Dan Campbell with it. Like you have to have the leadership. You have to have the wherewithal for grown men to follow you. So Matt Nagy didn't have that, but he had the offensive prowess, obviously, winning the playoff game with Mitch Trubisky. And then the defensive side of them, obviously, they have Steve Spagnuolo, who's one of the best to ever do it, former head coach himself, too. So you have guys that actually did it in the National Football League as head coaches, and now they're back in those positional roles. But, yeah, Detroit Lions number 2.
The crazy part of it is when the Lions hired Dan Campbell, they kind of zigged while the NFL was zagging.
Yeah, they did.
Like, the NFL was looking towards guys like Sean McVay, Kyle Shanahan, Mike McDaniel, these analytic, offensive, young geniuses to bring in and be the head coach. instead of guys like Mike Vrabel
Yeah.
and Andy Reid, even as these former players, these guys, these big macho, leaders of men, and they brought in Dan Campbell. Who was that?
They went the numbers route. They went the smart guy route with Matt Patricia.
And it didn't work.
Didn't work.
And
he was lacking the mouth. So they went the exact opposite and got the culture guy.
Yeah,
and that's what worked.
The complete opposite of Matt Patricia, a guy who's going to hype everybody up, a guy that could rally me to fight a rival town. Like, I would go to war for Dan Campbell. Like,
is this the 50s?
I would ride into battle with sword and shield if Dan Campbell gave me my pregame speech.
That was the
man is a legend, dude.
The thumbnail for our group chat for the longest.
Yeah,
which says Dan Campbell all night it out
like Braveheart. Yeah. And that, I think that resonates with these guys so much more.
Yeah,
especially because you are a former player. You've been there before. You've been in the trenches of the Lions before. You were on the 0-16 team, and that means a lot to these guys. And you supplement that coaching style with guys like Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn, who are analytical geniuses of their respective sides of the ball.
And I remember, like, once upon a time, too, like, guys didn't want Dan Campbell, like, after he had become the coach, and they were kind of comparing, like, the Detroit Lions rebuild to, like, the Giants at the time, the Jets at the time, and they're just saying, like, hey, Dan Campbell's not a guy, he's not a guy, but, like, you got to understand, like, the type of situation the Detroit Lions were in, it was completely different than any other team.
Yeah.
Like, you've never had a rebuild start with a, $25 million quarterback, which is a lot of money at that time. You never had a rebuild start with a situation the Detroit Lions are just as a franchise, like, one of the truly worst in sports at that time. Like, to gather people around, to rally around, I guess, the grave of that is much more than rallying around the New York Giants who've, won 2 Super Bowls in the past, like, 20 years. They beat Tom Brady. Or you'll get at the Jets, who's, at least they have a Super Bowl in their history, and they obviously have the run with Braylon, the AFC Championships. Like, the Lions were truly like a dead franchise. You needed a guy like Dan Campbell to, like, revitalize just the passion in itself before you go on and win the games. And I think he kind of got blessed in some sense. Obviously, he still made the decision to keep Ben Johnson as tight end coach, but, like, he didn't necessarily hire him to be the offensive coordinator, but he had the wherewithal to see that, hey, this kid's got something in him. He's also, like, went to Dan Campbell when that situation went down. I was like, look, I can do this.
I can do it.
Let me help you.
And he saw, that is another thing about Dan Campbell. He knew Anthony Lynn wasn't taking care of business, so he gets rid of him. He brings in Ben Johnson. Yeah. Last year, he knew that a guy like John Scott Jr. and Dre Bly, even a Detroit legend, wasn't taking care of business, so he gets rid of him, and he brings in guys like Terrell Williams to fix that problem.
Deshae
Townsend and Terrell Williams have this secondary and defensive line looking like completely new units because of just the energy and the coaching. And we remember that defensive line especially, obviously the secondary has been revamped with players. The defensive line is relatively the same except for a DJ Reader. But you go from Todd Wash, where the defense was looking fantastic, the defensive line, to John Scott Jr., and the defensive line took a step back.
Got real pass.
So you get rid of him, and then you grab Terrell Williams, and it looks amazing again. So Dan Campbell is decisive. He is efficient with his decisions, and he does what's best for the team and what's best for his players. 'Cause all I think about is you guys, man. Yeah. You got to believe me, man. And I love it. I love Dan Campbell. I'll go to war for that guy.
I mean, as you said, too, like, Dre Bly wasn't the first secondary coach to get bumped out of here.
Aubrey Pleasant
before him.
Yeah.
I mean, Anthony Lynn was like one of his good friends.
Very close friend.
That wouldn't hurt to, like, fire him. But like, he's accountable. He holds everybody accountable to the same standard too. So it's like, if you have shortcomings, like, you're not going to be here. We have a goal. We have a goal, man.
We have a goal, man.
And if you're not just picking it up and doing your part, you're out of here, bud. All I care about is you guys, man. You got to believe me.
But it's awesome, man. And Dan Campbell, he's a smash-mouth head coach. He doesn't take any nonsense. Yeah. And like I said, you supplement that with guys like Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn, who are very nitpicky, analytical on their sides of the ball. It makes sense that they were voted the number 2 coaching staff in the NFL. And that's
I think you could say there's better head coaches. Like, you want to talk about Kyle Shanahan and Sean McVay.
Yes.
But, like, they've been poached so much that you can't really speak to their staff because it's like there's somebody new every single year.
That's the craziest part. We kept the band together, We're bringing back the band. No Yoko Ono. The band's staying together.
Is the original Smash Mouth.
Yeah, shout out Smash Mouth. But, like, no Yoko Ono. The band is staying together because of a guy like Dan Campbell. You have Ben Johnson turning down head coaching opportunities.
Yes.
You have Aaron Glenn Glenn, who went out and he interviewed for head coaching spots, but they're staying here because they love the vibe and they feel like there's something special, and I do too. I think they're going to win the Super Bowl this year, and I'm extremely excited to watch it.
Yeah, we've mocked the vibe at times, but like it's a thing.
It's
here.
a thing. It really is.
thing.
They made vibing fun.